Hey everyone, and welcome back to STEM Girl Budgeting. If you're new here, I'm a 26-year-old woman living in a high cost of living city with my husband, and today I'm going to be breaking down what we made, spent, and invested in the month of September. So here I just have a quick overview of what our gross income is and also our taxes and our expenses for the month. We have 3 different sources of income this month. We have my income, my husband's income, and then bank interest that we get for leaving our cash in a high yield savings account. So to start off with, my gross income for this month was $6,246.90. And this is actually much higher than usual. So I have some notes here what this amount breaks down to. So we have first my PhD stipend, which is $4,000, and in a normal month, this is all that I would get. I would get about $4,000. So I am a PhD student in a STEM field, so this is my main income source right now. But for this fall semester, I'm also a teaching assistant, and so because my research stipend is already guaranteed for just working on my thesis and my doctoral work, I get an additional stipend for being a teaching assistant because that's something I elected to do. So I'm getting an additional $300 a week for this entire semester, which is really nice. And then I also got these annual payments from my school. So I get a transportation subsidy of $818 every single year. This is just an extra benefit that our school offers us to help us with transportation costs. And then also I have a dental insurance reimbursement for $222. I should be getting an additional reimbursement at some point, but I'm not sure exactly when that is. So for my husband, he is a 1099 contractor, and so he works as a software engineer for this company. He just has one contract right now, and they paid him $10,616.50 for the work that he did in August, I suppose. So he got paid in September for the work that he did in August. And then finally, our last income source for the month was our bank interest from our high yield savings account, and this came to $196.33 for a total combined income of $17,059.73. And this is the highest income month that we've ever had by a lot. It's absolutely insane, and yeah, we're very, very grateful. For context, back in April, we were making a little bit more than $9,000 a month gross, and so we really have just seen our income explode this year, which is why we're able to invest and save so aggressively now. Okay, and then for our taxes, the total amount of money that we either paid in taxes or saved for taxes was $3,400, or about 20%. And this might seem a little bit low to all of you, but there's a few reasons why it is 20%. And so one of those reasons is just because my husband didn't change jobs until May, and so he's making a lot more money the last part of the year as he was at the beginning of the year. So our household income isn't quite so high as what $17,000 a month would be. Also, I'm getting paid extra right now, and I'm not usually paid an additional like $1,200 a month. This is just while I'm a TA. And then lastly, we're also contributing a lot to pre-tax accounts, so tax deductible retirement accounts, like my husband's solo 401k, and then also he has an HSA. And so that also reduces our taxable income, so we don't owe as much in taxes. Okay, lastly, we have our expenses. So for this month, we spent $5,903.70. And so this is money that didn't go towards building assets or investments or anything like that. This is just money that we spent on different things that we'll never get back. And then for investments, we invested $4,983, which came to 29% of our gross income for the month. So total expenses were $10,886.70, and that means that our remaining cash was $2,758.83, which is about 16% of our income. And I will say that we're not like actively really saving for anything right now. The reason why I put this on here is because I just kind of want to like know for myself on a month-to-month basis how much cash we have remaining, because I use a budgeting app called YNAB Budget, where we give every dollar a job into these different envelopes, but I let the money in those envelopes roll over month to month, and so we're not spending all of the money in every category every single month. And so I like to just be aware of like how much money do we actually have rolling over month to month. And this month it's actually pretty high, and maybe that's reasonable because, you know, we have to save money for specific expenses that come out during the year. This is a bit higher than I would expect. We do want to be investing pretty aggressively. And so, yeah, if you guys have any comments on how you avoid cash accumulation in YNAB and strategies to avoid that, I'd love to hear them, because it's something I've been actively thinking about a lot recently, is how can I avoid just hoarding all of this cash in YNAB. I think it's a very common issue for YNAB users, but obviously it's not like a very terrible issue. It's better to have cash than to not have cash, but it's not great for like wealth building and for getting closer to financial independence. Okay, sorry for that little ramble. I'm gonna flip over to the YNAB Budget software so that we can go through the specifics of what we spent this month. And so, like I said before, our total spending was $10,886.70, and you can see the percentage breakdown of all of our different categories. So investments being the most, and then housing, healthcare, joint spending, food, my personal spending, dues and subs, giving, transportation, and then my husband's spending. So I'm just going to walk through kind of the specifics of what we spent in case you find it interesting. So for investments, we invested $3,125 into my husband's solo 401k. We are trying to max this out for the year, but we did start it late, which is why we have to contribute so much right now. We also contributed an additional $1,500 in our joint taxable brokerage, and we did $358 into my husband's HSA, so we're right on track to max this out by the end of the year. And then I'm going to go ahead and take out investments now so that we can just focus on everything else that we spent, both our fixed and variable costs. So starting with housing, our total housing expenses for the month were $2,403.70. The bulk of that went to rent, which was $2,175, which you can see here. We do live in a one-bedroom apartment in a very high cost of living city. We don't have any kind of amenities, like we don't have a dishwasher, we don't have in-unit laundry, and yeah, but we like the apartment and it allows us to save a lot of money by staying in it. So we are planning to stay in it for the foreseeable future. And then we did spend about $90 on household and toiletry items, $71 on our electric bill, and then $55 for internet. And then we also have a small natural gas bill, and this is just gas that we use for cooking in the kitchen. So that was $12.29. And then our next largest expense was actually healthcare. So my husband is self-employed, as I said, so we do pay for his health insurance out of pocket, and every month that's $491.64. And then we did have more medical expenses than we usually do. I had to get a mouth guard in order to prevent grinding my teeth at night, and that was about $550, I think. I made a $100 deposit a couple months ago, and then I finally got the mouth guard and paid the remaining amount. And then we also had to get some medication because we were both struggling a bit with sickness this month, so we got like some NyQuil, some Mucinex, those types of things. So a pretty high spend month for healthcare. And we could use our HSA for these expenses because we are married, so we can both use his HSA for our expenses, but we choose not to, and we choose to just spend money out of our own bank accounts so that we can leave the money in the HSA invested and so that it can grow tax-free. So we can always reimburse ourselves later for those medical expenses, but we'd rather leave it invested in the market so that we can take advantage of the tax advantage nature of the account. Okay, and going back to all groups. So our next largest expense was joint spending. And the bulk of this was a weekend trip to Los Angeles that we took. And so this $595 was actually most of the trip. I think we spent an additional maybe $200 before this month on half of the lodging. But yeah, it was about $800 for the whole trip, $600 this month. And yeah, it was really nice. We went to a friend's wedding and also just made a little bit of an extra trip about it. It was super fun. And then we have a little bit of money coming out of family visits, so $78. And this was just a couple of Ubers that my husband took to and from the airport. So he bought a plane ticket a couple months ago to go to one of his cousin's wedding, and then he needed to Uber to and from the airport, so that was $78. Okay. Next we have food, and so we spent $619, and about half of that was on groceries, half of that was on dining out. That's pretty normal for us. Our hard budget is $800 a month, but we tend to spend closer to $600, but we like to give ourselves some breathing room in case we do want to spend more money in a month. Okay, next we have my spending. So I spent money on a variety of different things. So clothing, I'm kind of always buying and returning clothes all the time because I'm trying to revamp my budget. A lot of this is probably going to be returned next month. So actually, yeah, I'm about to make a bunch of returns like tomorrow for some of this money that was spent. I'm having a hard time with my wardrobe right now. So I'm just trying to get some pieces that I feel like are missing. This might be surprising to you because you guys have probably seen me spend money on clothes every single month the last few months, but I really am a minimalist when it comes to clothes. I have 2 pairs of pants. I have very limited shirts, like very limited jackets, and I prefer it because I don't like having a lot of things. It's like overwhelming for me to have a lot of things, but I like to have nice things and I like to have things that fit very well. And I like to obviously feel confident and good in my clothes. And so I'm really, really picky. And so I end up buying clothes, returning them, being very like indecisive about all of it. But I'm trying to let that go a little bit and just buy more clothes so that I can figure out my sense of style a little bit more. And I also would love to eventually invest in higher quality clothes, but I think for now, while I'm experimenting, I tend to buy cheaper clothes so that it's not like a huge investment. Because like if you don't know if you like a certain type of item, I don't want to spend like $200 or $300 on something that I might not love. I would rather spend like $20 or $30 on a cheap version that might wear out, and then I could later like buy the more expensive item. I don't know if that makes sense, but a lot of this is just like cheapo clothing that I'm trying out and seeing like if I like it because I want to kind of revamp my wardrobe. Anyway, for fitness, I subscribed to Runna, which is just like an app that helps you train. I know a lot about like running and how to train for running, but I kind of just wanted something to tell me what to do. And I had heard good things about Runna, so I'm just going to try it for this year. It's $127 for the whole year. I probably won't renew it next year, but we'll see. We'll see if I like it. And then my Curology, this comes out every 2 months. It's about $99. And then movies, I did go and see a couple of movies, and I got popcorn at both of these movies, actually. But one of the movies I went and saw was One Battle After Another. It was so good. I loved it. I was really surprised by how much I loved it, but I did. I liked it a lot. And then I also saw Twinless. I actually went and saw Twinless by myself. So I'm a huge film fanatic, which is why I have my own category for movies, because I just like to track how much I spend on movies, and I like having a record of all the movies that I saw in a year. And Twinless was something that I wanted to see. I didn't have anyone available to go with me, and so I love just going to the movies by myself. There's something really satisfying about just like sitting in the back of the theater with my popcorn and just enjoying a movie for like what it is. The theater was like pretty empty because it had been out for a while already, and yeah, it made me laugh. It was a really interesting movie. I really enjoyed it. I liked this movie a lot. Okay. Now, going back, so our next largest category, so on the pie chart, this is dues and subs, $298. So we had just our regular subscriptions come out, which are our streaming services, and then iCloud and Google One. And then we had a couple of annual expenses come out as well. So my husband's phone plan, so this is a prepaid phone plan. He just pays once a year. And then he has, coverage for the entire year. So that was $220. And then also we have ring insurance for my engagement ring, and that was $50 for the whole year. Next, we have giving. So yeah, we just spent a decent amount of money on gifts. We had to buy a wedding gift for my friend who got married. And then, yeah, a couple of other things. I bought some things for some of my friends. I'm someone who, I don't worry about people paying me back with a lot of stuff, because a lot of my friends are in grad school and they don't have, partners that make as much money as my husband do. And so I try to be pretty generous. I pay for Ubers, I get people's food sometimes. I don't mind doing that, but I think that's what some of this was. Okay. And then we have transportation, and this was a little bit of gas, so we filled up once. A couple of Ubers, I think, that I took, which was $50, and probably a couple of subway tickets. And then we also, we had to pay for a parking ticket. That's pretty normal for us. So we don't have an official parking spot, a designated parking spot. And so we do sometimes get parking tickets because we just forget to move our car from metered parking or something, or we leave it on. Yeah, anyway, it's silly, but it actually saves us a lot of money not paying for the parking spot, and just keeping in mind that we're probably going to get several parking tickets throughout the year. It ends up being a lot cheaper. So yeah, $40 for that. And then we also had to pay $35 for a vehicle inspection. Okay. And then lastly, this small little sliver is my husband's spending. So he just spent $34 on getting his hair cut and then $20 on the gym. And my husband is so funny. He just doesn't spend any money. Although right now he actually just went to Topgolf, so he is spending money right now. He's out with his friends. But he's just super frugal. I mean, we both are historically quite frugal. I've been spending more money the last few months because I've kind of been healing my mind a bit. I feel I always just felt guilty for spending money all the time. I've always had a lot of money stress, and just the last few months I've just been you know what, I'm just going to spend money and spend the money that I have in my categories and not feel guilty about it. And I think my husband is still just in a mindset of just I don't need to buy this, I don't need to buy this. I don't think he feels guilty when he spends money. I just think he really doesn't care to buy things. But I'm always encouraging him to spend money on things because I think he deserves it. And I'm yeah, if you want to go and do this, I was you should totally go do this. Or, if you want to get some sort of device, iPad or whatever, you should get it. But yeah, he's just a simple guy, I guess, and doesn't really need a lot of things. Also, he's not a gamer. And so he doesn't really have any hobbies that require a lot of money to go into them. He likes to read. And we have library cards, so he doesn't need to spend money on that. And we don't really have shelves for him to buy physical books and stuff a lot. But yeah, a lot of his hobbies just really don't require to spend a lot of money. They're mostly free. It's he also likes sports, but there's upfront costs with sports, but you don't really need to continuously buy things. Anyway, I don't know why I'm talking so much about my husband's spending habits, but yeah, he only spent $54 this month. Okay, and that's it for what we spent in the month of September. If we go to this category view, you can kind of see what categories took the most money, and you can see by far it's rent, then medical, and then this trip, and then health insurance. So I would say about $1,200 of this was kind of a one-off expense, but as life is, there's kind of one-off expenses almost every month, and that's why it's important to budget and be prepared for non-monthly expenses. Okay, and now we're going to go over to my net worth tracker. So this is where I track our net worth month to month. I take all of the values of our accounts on the last day of the month and I put it into the spreadsheet so we can see how we're doing on all of our goals. So we are in September, which is over here, and we're going to start with what is in our checking and savings. And we had $53,825.19 at the end of the month. In my Roth IRA, we had $31,656.38. So that's just a little bit of growth from the market because we maxed it out earlier in the year. And then my husband's Roth IRA has $22,995.57. His HSA had $3,538.29. And then the traditional component of his solo 401k had $6,682.59. And then the Roth component had $8,542.30. And then our joint brokerage had $5,651.25, which brings our total assets at the end of September to $132,891.57, which is great. And then for credit cards, so we had a balance of $4,812.26 at the end of the month. And so we obviously want to count that against our net worth. And then we didn't have anything saved at the time for taxes because we paid our estimated quarterly taxes in September and drained that category. And so I do like to count our tax savings as liabilities so that our net worth doesn't fluctuate like throughout the year, where it like grows a lot during the months that we're saving for taxes and then all of a sudden drops a ton when we pay our quarterly estimated taxes. I like to just take that amount out so that it's a little bit cleaner and actually more representative of what our net worth actually is. So our current net worth is $128,079.31. I don't know why I struggled to say that a little bit, but that's our net worth. And so this is a growth of almost $10,000 from the previous month. We're up 8.46% from last month and up overall 51.68% year to date, which is so amazing. For investments, because we are very investment focused right now and we're trying to sprint our way to $100,000 invested as soon as possible, we are at $79,066.38 for an increase of about $7,600, up 10% from last month and up 118% year to date. So that's really, really exciting. We've been able to invest a lot ever since my husband got a new job and more than doubled his income. And so we're really happy and grateful that we've been able to contribute so much to our investments and really see them grow this year. The market has just been really up like this whole year. Besides that little bit of a dip in like March, April time, the market's done really, really well. I obviously don't really care if the market's doing well or not because I'm invested for the long term. So if it drops, that's actually awesome because then we can invest a lot of money while the market is down and then we can see even more gains when it goes back up later. But anyway, also just for some context, we don't have any other liabilities because we already paid off our car. My husband got his car for about $10,000. How many years ago? I think in 2021. He got his car in 2021 and we already paid off that car. So we worked on that a lot when we first got married so that we could just like take care of that. And then for student loans, my husband did have a very small student loan, but we did pay it off. So both of us did receive full tuition scholarships for our college, for our undergraduate degrees. And we also both worked part-time during school to cover our living expenses. And then my husband also qualified for Pell Grants. And so he was able to also live off the Pell Grants that he received from the government. And so we were very fortunate to not have student loans. So that has allowed us to really increase our net worth a lot because when we first got married, our net worth was basically zero because the amount that my husband had on his car and in student loans did basically equal the amount of cash that we had. But we've really just seen this grow a lot over the last 3 years, which has been really cool. Okay, Now I'm going to go over our goals. So if you're new here, we have a big goal of investing $50,000 this year. And so that entails maxing out all of our tax advantaged accounts and then putting the rest of the money into a taxable brokerage. So where are we on all of these goals? So our Roth IRAs, they're both maxed for the year. So we're at 100% completion for those. We are right on track for my husband's HSA, and we will have that maxed out by the end of the year. And then we are working actively to max out his solo 401k, at least the employee contribution for it. So we're at 14,125 or 60% completion. And then lastly, we have the taxable brokerage at 5,200, which is 63% to completion. And so year to date, we have invested $36,548.66, and we are 73.1% of the way done, and we are 75% of the way through the year. So we're basically right on track with this goal. And I actually know for a fact that as long as nothing crazy happens the next couple of months, we actually should be able to surpass this $50,000 goal because of the teaching assistant position that I picked up. So because I'm making more money and because my husband got a raise, I think we're going to be able to do even more than $50,000 this year, which is really, really exciting. Okay, and then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this investment total amount and then go over to my investment calculator that I have, because I like to just throw this in and kind of see what it could become by retirement age. So my husband and I are the same age. We're both 26, and our government retirement age should be 67, based off of what the US is saying that retirement age is right now. And so our current investments, why am I struggling so much? Okay, so current investments, $79,066. Why can't I speak? $79,066. So if we didn't contribute anything more and we assumed a 10% rate of return, 3% inflation, this money should grow to $1.38 million by the time that we retire, and that's in today's dollars. So we are accounting for inflation, so it would feel like $1.38 million today. And assuming a 4% withdrawal rate, that would be an annual income of $55,000, which would be about $4,600 monthly, which is really, really awesome and cool to see. And if we assumed that we were going to contribute as much as we're contributing now, which is like, it's at least 4,500, but more like 5,000. So I'm going to put 5,000. We would have over $15 million at retirement. So that's obviously insane. So we're definitely on track to retire early or to substantially reduce our investment amounts. And obviously this is assuming a 10% rate of return, and maybe this is too aggressive. Like maybe 8% would be much more reasonable, but still, like 8.7 million in today's dollars, that's a lot of money. So yeah, I feel pretty good. Like we're in very, very good shape right now. But yeah, our goal is to eventually reach what's called CoastFI. So let me just walk through this part of the spreadsheet. So our current investments, $79,000, and our monthly contributions, we're going to put at $5,000 right now. So CoastFI is the amount of money that you need invested right now in order to not contribute another penny to your retirement accounts, and then you can just let that money grow, let compound interest take over, and you should still be able to retire at whatever age you want to retire at. So here I actually have this at 60. I usually have this at 67, which is normal retirement age. So in order to coast to 67, meaning that we could spend $120,000 in retirement, which is a lot more than what we spend right now. So this is spending $10,000 a month. And as you saw for our September breakdown, we spent under $6,000 and it was a more expensive month. So maybe like $72,000 would be more reasonable, but I just have no idea what our retirement expenses are going to be. So I just said $120,000. So if we had $172,000 invested today, we wouldn't need to contribute anything more in order to retire at 67. And so that's what CoastFI is. It's just this amount where you don't really need to contribute to retirement anymore. So this spreadsheet is really nice because it can calculate how far we are from CoastFI. So assuming we're contributing $5,000 a month, we should be able to coast in 1.7 years and we will be 28 years old. And the value of our investment accounts will be $193,000 at that point. So if we were CoastFI today, it would be $172,000, but at 28 years old, it would be $193,000. Obviously, it's going to need more because it's not going to have as long to compound. And so we're really in a good place, I feel. We're never going to stop investing entirely, but I could imagine us dropping down to like 15%, maybe even 10% if we go through, times where we're going to just need to focus more on other things. Like we do want to have kids someday. And so maybe we won't be able to invest as much when we have kids in daycare or when we have a mortgage on like a house or something like that. And so while we're young, we're trying to invest as much as possible in order to make retirement just that much easier in the future. And so I really like this calculator because it puts things in perspective and really helps to motivate us to invest a lot now while we're young. I don't think that we're depriving ourselves in any way. I feel like we're able to spend money on basically whatever we want. We've just kept our fixed costs really low by not having any debt and having our apartment costs be pretty reasonable for the city that we live in. We could spend, hundreds of dollars more on a way nicer apartment, a way nicer like 1-bedroom apartment, but we choose to stay where we are so we're able to invest more money and really have that money work for us later on. And I just think I'm going to feel a lot better about having kids in the future, knowing that we're not going to need to invest a substantial amount for retirement. I feel like this world has just gotten really, really expensive and finances can be really scary. And I've just seen a lot of our family members really struggle. And so that's why we're just so passionate about taking care of this while we're young so that we don't need to worry so much when we get older and we can focus on spending time with our family and being able to, choose to take a step back from work if we want. Like maybe one of us wants to work part-time, maybe one of us wants to take a break from working altogether for a few years. And this is going to give us a lot of options by reaching CoastFI as early as possible in life. Okay, and now I'm just going to wrap this video up. So thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate everyone who's been leaving comments on my videos. And if you're interested in this type of content on personal finance, budgeting, financial independence, feel free to subscribe and follow along. And I'll talk to you guys later in the next one. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.